Very few devices have so thoroughly ticked as many boxes as the OnePlus Open. So when you start thinking about what you would want from a OnePlus Open 2, it is genuinely a bit more difficult. With other devices, you have obvious answers. With this one, it's so good, it's kind of hard. But in this video, I'm going to do my best to go through my wish list for the OnePlus Open 2. From the physical perspective, the OnePlus Open is really, really solid in a lot of ways. There are very few things that I would like to see radically change. You may expect me as a big Pixel Fold user to say that I would like to see this device get a little bit shorter and a little bit wider, but I'm actually not going to do that. I think it should stay exactly like it is because the Pixel Fold already exists, and it's good to have that sort of diversity. In regard to just the sort of shape and size of the device, the only thing that I would really like to see altered is this camera bump on the back. It is just absolutely mammoth sized, and part of that, look, on the depth side of things, it's just simply physics. If you want to have big sensors and you're trying to fit them into a device that is this thick or this thin, that is just something that is going to happen. But it doesn't have to be this large, right? You could make it in a horizontal bar or something that would allow it to be higher up on the device and more out of the way. For me, when I'm holding this thing, your finger kind of just is right there up against it, and it's just kind of awkward for me to hold. Now, that might just be the size and shape of my hands. Maybe that doesn't bother you, but it's something that does irritate me just a little bit. I'd like to see that camera bump shrunk and maybe just moved up out of the way a little bit. There's a lot of just empty, unused space here that I just don't understand. One thing we could touch on potentially is in regard to the hinge. Now, this is a device that you are fully able to use in a sort of laptop mode. It will do this, but if it goes too far, right, if you get to about this area, it does have a tendency to just sort of snap open. Now, I've already told you guys in other videos, I like the fact that it kind of snaps open. That's something that I think is quite good. So finding the balance between snaps open and also can be in laptop mode at a decent angle might be literally an impossibility. But if there's any way to balance that, that would definitely be a cool thing to do. Again, I don't think that's probably possible though. I almost forgot to mention though my biggest gripe with this thing on that physical perspective, and I've said this a million times, it's the volume rocker. They're just up so high that anytime I need to change the volume with one hand, you have to do your full grip shift and come up here to get to it. I don't know why they're that high. I would love to see it brought down just a little ways. Let's talk about on the software side of things, because a lot of it is really, really good, but there are still some sort of just weird things going on. So when you're in side-by-side, split screen, everything works really, really well. You can jump in and you can expand an application. You can open up a third application. You can float a window over top. All that stuff is awesome. But something I've recently found out, if you use the top and bottom split, you do lose a little bit of functionality. You can't do all apps, top, bottom, split, and both be visible at the same time. Wise is a good example. You cannot shrink this app. So the best you can do, top, bottom, is one app up top that can be potentially expanded or shrunk. But like I said, not all apps can be shrunk. So this is sort of a weird situation. Like I said, they get a lot right on the software, but there are some rough edges that kind of need to be ironed out. I've also noticed that at times when I'm just launching applications, there was a weird, look, not significant, okay? I'm not sitting here telling you this thing is slow. 99% of the time, it is blazingly fast. But just sometimes you'll see, it wasn't there that time, sometimes you'll just see a little bit of stutter here and there. The software is just not as optimized as it could be. The raw horsepower is there. Yet oftentimes the device that should be slower, like my Pixel Fold, ends up feeling just crisper and smoother because the software is just a bit more optimized. I already mentioned that I don't really want the screens to change their size and shape, and honestly, I don't really think that they need to mess with the crease really at all either, because it's just fantastic. You can barely see it. There's so much to love about these screens, but one thing that I would like to see them do is increase the brightness. Now, I can hear some of you already saying, Shane, 2,800 nits of peak brightness. It is such a bright screen. But here's the reality. In independent testing, not my own, I tested it with my eyes, and I can kind of vouch for this. But in independent testing I've seen elsewhere, this thing has only been verified to be hitting around 1,300 nits. So that is nowhere near the brightness that is advertised. That's something like a 50, 60, 70% difference in actual brightness versus what they're telling us. Now, there may be some scenario where in an HDR bit of content, it will hit 2,800, but that is just not something I have ever seen. In my experience, again, a device like the Pixel Fold that should be dimmer, 1450 versus 2,800, outside with adaptive brightness turned on, which allows them to hit their true peak, it ends up being at least as bright, if not brighter. So that's something that, look, I'm used to using these really bright screens now with devices like the S23 Ultra. I would love nothing more than to see this thing step that brightness up and maybe get closer to that true, real 15, 16, 17, like the Z Fold 5. You're going to have to catch up a little bit there. Another thing I'd like to see are just more color options, right? All we got was that green and then this sort of faux leather. Now, don't get me wrong, I really like the faux leather. It allows me to carry it with no case, no skin, and I do actually dig that. But I would love to see more colors whenever the OnePlus Open 2 is released. I am just a huge sucker for the color blue. Give me a color blue and I'm going to be very, very happy. Really go crazy and give me like a Pixel 1 blue, and I'm going to have to absolutely buy that device. Let's also talk about accessories, because let's be honest, there just aren't a lot of them to speak about. You go on Amazon and there just aren't a lot of cases. So OnePlus, work with these vendors and get cases produced for this device. That is a really big one. Now, there is also a rumor that a OnePlus Watch number 2 is apparently coming down the pipe very soon. It's going to be running Wear OS from what I've been hearing. That's great because we do need more accessories. Build out that ecosystem. The earbuds are quite good. The watch is coming, so that is awesome. But the last piece we got to talk about is the pen. There is a pen that works with this device on this display, and I think it works on the cover display as well. It is the Oppo pen, and people seem to really like it, but you can't purchase it here in North America. You can only import it. Inventory is very low. The price has gone through the roof. Release the OnePlus pen. You got to do that. And I know there's a big one that if I don't mention, people are going to ask me if I'm out of my mind. The wired charging on this device is fantastic. 67 watts, awesome, love it. But you know what it does not have? Qi wireless charging. You cannot put this thing onto a wireless charging pad and have it charge. I get that it's very thin and there are sacrifices being made, but if you can find a way to put that wireless charging coil in this thing, which might necessitate moving the camera bump up a little bit, I don't know. Find a way to get wireless charging in there. That would be awesome. And the last thing I want to touch on is with the camera. Now, I've already told you guys, I think that the camera on this device is fantastic. I think it's the best camera on any foldable, even better than that of my Pixel Fold, which surprised quite a few people. I think it's really, really good. The zoom in particular is fantastic. The ultra wide is fantastic. It's a great camera, but it's not perfect. Even with recent software updates that did improve things, it does still have a tendency to occasionally shoot a little bit warmer than it ought to be. It kind of reminds me of where Samsung cameras used to be back in the day. Certain items, certain objects in the viewfinder will basically give you like this reddish, orangish colored photo that just does not map onto reality. They do need to continue optimizing this camera. Now, they are using a lot of new sensors, so that does take time. I would say stick with the same sensors for the most part, from 1 to 2, and do the Pixel thing. Use the same sensor for a while and really dial that thing in. You've already got good enough hardware, so just keep dialing in the software, the tuning of the colors, and I think you're going to be in a really good place. So guys, there you go. Those are the things on my wish list for the OnePlus Open number 2. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. What did I miss? What are the things that you absolutely have to have? Should be a fun conversation to have. Subscribe for more content like this, and until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.